President Trump, I have to know that Ukraine wants to settle. Yeah.
Earlier this week, where you warned that there could be a little disturbance that Americans could feel as a function of these taxes, these tariffs. How much disturbance are you willing to accept in the near term as a function of that? And to set expectations, how long should Americans expect things to cost a bit more?
Well, so far, Peter, there hasn't been very much because these numbers are coming out. We're here for just a little over 4 weeks. And these are fantastic numbers. I was watching some of the reports this morning. They were surprised. There could be some disturbance, a little bit of disturbance. I solved a little bit of that because I have respect for our auto companies, and I gave them a little bit of a 1-month reprieve because it was
Wasn't it supposed to be about Ukraine?
Although,
come on, dude.
I'm sure they'll take advantage of it. I see they're driving a lot of cars into the U.S. to try and avoid the tariffs, and they're taking advantage of it a little bit. But they called me, they asked me, they said, could they have a little bit of help? And I decided, they're American companies, USMCA. And
well, regarding the tariffs, obviously I live in Canada, so it's not great for us. But if you look at it from the strictly logical point of view, kind of makes sense because he's trying to resurrect the economy of United States, right? And it's making some of the companies to move their factories and manufacturing and all of it back to US just to avoid the tariffs, right? So in the long term, it might work. And as long as everyone's on the same page, being like, hey, we have all the energy from the US, like we have everything we need, right? As long as everyone understands it, it might work, might be good for them. Then obviously, if we look at it from the emotional point of view, being Canadian or people in Mexico, not good for them, not good for anyone. But yeah, well, that's my opinion. It might work as long as everyone's on the same page. And honestly, like if Canada realize, like, okay, we actually don't need shit from US, right? Like we have our own gas, we have energy infrastructure, we have all of these things that we don't need to buy from outside of Canada, then it's gonna end up being good for Canadians as well. But the question is, will they realize it? Like, I see everyone just blaming Trump for the situation Canada's in right now. But what about Trudeau? Like 9 years under Liberals and everything went downhill before even Trump got reelected. Like, how can you blame him for this? Like, this tariffs are just tip of the iceberg. Like, we should have been in position where, okay, the tariffs come in. Yeah, maybe we can't go on 2 vacations. Maybe we can't really eat out all the time. But no, right now Canada's in the position where you're already like, oh shit, I might lose my house. And now the tariffs hit, right? But again, it's not Trump's fault that our economy or the difference between like high class and pretty much low class, because there's no middle class right now, is so huge. Like, that's not Trump's fault. Like, he didn't do this to us for 9 years. Like, it's ridiculous to blame him just for the tip of the iceberg, right? Like, we should have been in so much better situation before he even got reelected. But no, we were not, and that's why now it might be the last nail into the coffin, obviously. But even without the tariffs, we were barely making it by. So, like, something needs to change. I keep saying it all the time, and hopefully with election, and we're gonna go the different way, the same like US right now with the different president, right?
I let them have that. But this really kicks in, the reciprocals, kicks in on, let's see, I guess the 2nd. And I wanted it to be the 1st so badly. It just didn't want to be on April Fool's Day. So I made it the 2nd. That's going to cost a lot of money. That one day is going to cost a lot of money, but that's okay. But I don't see it. I don't see anything. I see good reports. I think we're going to have good numbers from the beginning. Now, globalists won't love this because this brings jobs back to...
You know what's ridiculous? Everyone's like making fun or saying how Trump is gonna make it worse for US now because of the tariffs, right? But what's the response to tariffs? Okay, we're gonna give you our own tariffs. And it's like, so wait, you were just saying all of this? You actually, well, obviously politicians nowadays don't care about citizens or about normal people, right? But like, how can you judge him prior to election, during the election, after he got elected, before this whole tariffs were applied? You were saying how he's going to make it bad for Americans. And now you're doing exactly the same thing. Like, oh, he gave us 25% tariffs. Okay, let's give it back to him. And who cares about normal people, right? Like, it's ridiculous. Obviously, like, you need to fight against it somehow. But still, like, take your ego out of it, man. Like, there are people who are on the edge of bankruptcy, edge of losing the house. Some people don't even have any money to buy food, and you're gonna be like, no, we have a bigger dick, we're gonna do this. No, just work it out so the citizens are okay, not the freaking your ego, man.
To America. So if they're coming back to America, maybe you'll lose some in other.
And again, I don't think Trump is doing this because of the ego. I honestly think he does it so he resurrects the economy, so he brings more the companies back to US. He makes more money. Like, I don't think in his case is ego, but all of these like responses to the tariffs, I think that's the ego.
Other parts of the world. But the other parts of the world have done very well, and they'll continue to do very well. But I think the United States is going to be doing record business. We'll bring a lot of those 90,000 factories that have been lost over the last number of years. It's been, it's hard to believe. 90,000, think of what 90,000 is. 90,000 plants and factories are gone. We're going to bring back many of those plants and factories.
One day the tariffs are on, the next day they're off. Right now the markets, as you know well, prefer stability. Are you done going forward with the pauses and the carve-outs?
Don't let them know your next
There'll always
move,
be
man.
Changes and adjustments, and you know you can't just. I could have, for instance, told the American car companies, "No, I'm not going to give you anything," and then you wouldn't have had to say, "Well, they're getting a little extra." It's just a little bit of a 1-month reprieve.
Trudeau announced he is Zionist and that more Canadians should be proud to be and loud. Well, just send him back to school. Send Trudeau back to school. He can teach. I mean, now he doesn't need to, right? Because he made a lot of money and obviously wasn't very legal. Wasn't there some issue with his charity organization or how he employed his mom to do some speech for like $250K and there was some investigation regarding that, and now it's just quiet. Nothing's going on about it anymore. Maybe he's gonna give everyone amnesty for last 10 years, man. We'll see.
They're very happy about what's happening. They won't have to go across borders, and you see the zigzagging. You have a fender made in Canada, you have something else made in Mexico. We don't want that. We want it made here. But there'll always be some modifications. I mean, if you have a wall in front of you, sometimes you have to go around the wall instead of through it. But I think very little. I think very little. On occasion, if we can do something, we want to help companies. We want to help companies create jobs. So I could have left that, and you wouldn't have had a minor change. Instead, I was asked by the real majors, the big majors, if they could do this, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. I want you to produce a lot of jobs. And numerous of the people, actually all of the people I spoke to have already been, they're very much on the way to already do it. That's why you have auto jobs increase. And the man, I don't know him, Sean Fain, I don't know him, and I did great, as you know, with the auto workers, with the Teamsters, with unions. I did fantastically well. Best numbers ever by a Republican.
Yeah, I think the unions endorsed him in the end, right?
But Sean Fain, who I don't know, but wasn't a supporter, although the auto workers were big supporters. I watched him last night, and he said Donald Trump is absolutely right on tariffs. He said what he's doing on tariffs is an incredible thing. And it's about time somebody had the guts to do it, because we're going to save auto manufacturing. And I said to people when I was campaigning, you're going to have so many auto jobs, you're not going to believe what's going to happen.
To be fair, he said it, and let's be honest, if he didn't do the whole tariff things, do you really think all of the manufacturers would come back to US? No, they would be like, why? We're just gonna still produce it in China. Like, he's asking us for it, but we have no reason to give up profit, right? But now with tariffs, they have no other choice. And I mean, tell me, who doesn't want to have things built in the US? Like, I remember back in the day when you had all of these like little cars, right? And the Matchbox cars. And you had, it was manufactured in the UK for the longest time. And then out of nowhere, they switched to China. Those from China, that was shit. That broke straight away. Like, and it went that far that before you bought a car, like the Matchbox car, right? You flipped it around, I mean upside down, to check where was it made. If it was made in China, forget it. I'm not buying it. And we were literally trading the ones made in the UK. That's how you can see the difference in quality. So obviously China got much better. Now they're top in the world for manufacturing and everything, thanks to everyone giving them technology, right? But I still bet people would rather buy stuff made in US, UK, whatever, rather than China, because there's still that stereotype about the quality. So yeah, like I said, back to the tariffs. If he didn't do it, no one would come back to US, because everyone's about money. Like, no one cares about normal people. You think these companies care about the jobs in US? No. Well, in China, they can pay them, what, $2 an hour and let them sleep in the factory, whatever, work them off until they freaking faint because there are no labor laws or anything like that. Like, the companies don't care about it, and you can see it, how they're just going with popular opinion, like Toyota and everyone about LGBTQ. When it was popular, yeah, we're gonna support Pride Month. Now with Trump in the office, you know what, we're not supporting this anymore, we're not giving up money that way. Like, you see, they don't have any moral high grounds or anything, or who's talking about high ground, right? Just the moral values. It's all about money. So if Trump hits them with tariffs, they're gonna go where the money is, rather than staying in China and lose profit. So if he just politely ask, like, hey, can you come back to US, create more jobs, they wouldn't do it. So he did the only thing he could, and it worked. So tariffs, I think long term, if everyone's on the same page, it's going to be good. Short term, not so good.
Going to load up Michigan. I won the state of Michigan, as you know. And part of the reason I won it was I got a lot of auto workers that voted for me, Detroit, etc. But I think people are going to be very surprised. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned in your remarks chips manufacturing, how a significant percentage is now in Taiwan. You also mentioned it in your address to Congress, and you called on Congress to overturn the CHIPS Act, which has...
Oh, it's Taiwan. So that's why they don't want China to take over Taiwan. And see, again, it wasn't any moral values when US wanted to protect Taiwan. It was just about the profit. And that it's always going to be like this, right? And yeah, it's kind of sad, but at the same time, that's how the world is, and you need to accept it. Don't be emotional about it. And that's probably what we're gonna mention a couple of times about Ukraine as well. But let's see if... Damn, this is such a clickbait, right? This title. I have to know that Ukraine wants to settle, but yeah. didn't mention it in 5 minutes yet.
Had bipartisan support in the last Congress. Why would you like to see this particular law overturned, Mr. President?
Because it's hundreds of billions of dollars and it's just a waste of money. Now, some people have already taken the money and used it. Actually, it's very hard to qualify because they go by race, they go by gender, they go by all sorts of things. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. You won't be able to find those people. So I don't even think anybody can qualify. They have so many different categories in order to qualify.
He didn't even want to say sexual orientation, and it's ridiculous. Like, since when sexual orientation is something that's beneficial for your work? It's like 10 years ago they would send you to HR if someone even asked you if you're heterosexual or not, and now it's during the hiring process, like normal question, or on the paper form, application, sorry. It's ridiculous. And like, he looked like he's gonna say it, but he realized how ridiculous it is to even say it. Like,
you have to have so many of a certain race, a certain gender, a certain this, a certain, and I don't think they can qualify, but if they take the money, they better qualify because they'll be watching them. But it's a tremendous waste of money. I didn't give the greatest chip company in the world, one of the greatest companies, I didn't give them 10 cents. They came here because of tariffs, because they didn't want to pay the tariffs. And they also came here because they like the results of the election, because they know that I'm very pro-business and pro-jobs. I mean, I'm pro-business, not for business sake. I'm pro-business because of jobs. Because
well, yeah, he's a businessman, right?
The jobs. Okay.
Like, if you think about it, you had presidents being or politicians that became presidents for pretty much ever, right? Why? Like, what good they bring? It's no longer like they don't think about themselves, about servants of people anymore, right? Like, back in the day, the whole reason why you have a political representative, or whatever you want to call it, it was supposed to be representative, represent people. So pretty much people pay your salary, which is still the same, but now it kind of feels like people are not in power anymore. It's like you choose this guy to be celebrity and he's there just representing his own values, whatever, instead of representing people. So why are we still choosing politicians to be presidents, or just politicians in all of these ministry of whatever, right? I really think it's a good way to shake it up a little bit, to choose Trump as a president again. Because he's a businessman. He knows how to make deals, how to make money, how to handle bankruptcy, all of it, right? Like, people will be very negative about him being like, oh, he bankrupted this many times. But he took experience out of it. Like, he knows now. He knows how to handle it. And if you compare it with some celebrity being president, like, what do they know? How are they going to improve your life? So no, like, I really think he's a right man for the job. And according to the election, a lot of people think that.
Russia, if I may, President Putin is bombing Ukraine.
Yeah.
Do you still believe him when he tells you that he wants peace?
Yeah, no, I believe him. I believe
There we
him.
go.
I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine, and Ukraine, I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine.
And that's the thing. Like, let's take the emotional part out of it. Obviously, what Russia did is bad. Like, there's no excuse for it. They should have never invaded Ukraine. But it happened. The war is going on. What are you supposed to do now? So if Ukraine is not willing to negotiate, why should Russia stop bombing them? Like, Russia's the one who started this whole conflict, right? Or war, or call it whatever you want, I don't care. But like, Russia's the one who started. Why should they stop only because Ukraine's hesitant to negotiate about a peace? Like there's not even a negotiation going on right now, or at least we don't know about it, right? So there's no reason for them to stop doing what they've been doing for 3 years. Like, I'm sorry, it's definitely hard to try to negotiate about a peace for Trump, but you know what's hard? How can he negotiate about a peace when one party is not even willing to participate in these negotiations? Like,
And they don't have the cards. They don't have the cards.
oh, the cards again.
As you know, we're meeting in Saudi Arabia on sometime next week, early. And we're talking, I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean, they're bombing the hell out of them right now.
Well, who knows what the settlement's gonna be, right? Like, they took over so many areas of Ukraine. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't think they're just gonna give it up. But yeah, like he said, like, it definitely looks like it might be easier with Russia right now. And the craziest thing about it is that just that Russia picks up the phone makes it easier than Ukraine, because they're not even willing. And you saw that interview that outraged so many people. Well, not interview, the meeting between Trump, JD, and Zelensky, right? Like, that's not a guy who wants peace. I'm sorry. Like, that's a guy who wants to protect his... A lot of people will get mad, but he wants to protect his ego. But you need to protect your people, not your ego. Like, people are dying because you want it to be like before the war, which is not possible right now. Like, you didn't want to negotiate at the beginning, and now when you're like even in a worse situation, it's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. Like, I don't really see it like Zelensky is doing it for the people right now, because the longer he waits with even negotiating, the more people will die. So tell me, how is it not about the ego?
I put a statement in, a very strong statement. Can't do that. You can't do that.
Mr. President.
We're trying to help them. And Ukraine has to get on the ball and get a job done. Michael, could you come up here? I see Michael back there. Yeah, good, I'm glad. He's traveling all over the world. I just saw him come in the door. Could you give a little definition of what's going on, please?
Sure. Well, the president has been crystal clear, and he's been clear to all sides. The fighting has to stop. Both sides need to get to the table. We had a good engagement. Both leaders have said only President Trump could do so, and only he has been able to do so. We had an initial engagement with the Russians. The Ukrainians had a great opportunity to bind our economies together through that mineral deal. Unfortunately, that didn't go so well, but we think we're going to get things back on track.
I still can't believe that they didn't sign it, and it's I mean, it's Biden's fault. Like, let's be honest. People are so pissed. Like, I keep hearing bullshit like, oh, US will help them only if they sign this deal. But the US has been helping them for 3 years. Like, they send them like $180 billion. Like, they just want something back. And in comparison with Europe, like, the money Europe sent to Ukraine was clearly characterized as a loan. But with Biden sending money to Ukraine, there was nothing like that, or at least we didn't hear anything about it. So now, if US wants some mineral deal, it's only to get this $180 billion back. And honestly, like, that's what Ukraine owes them, right? And I'm not surprised if Trump is going to be like, well, we're not going to send you not a single dollar, no money, nothing until you sign it. And that's his right. Like, he's sending taxpayers money, and like, with no hope of repaying it. It's ridiculous. And I don't understand how Biden did that. And to me, that's treason. Just, yeah, let's send our taxpayers' money to Ukraine without any hope of return of that money. And yeah, you can't afford a rent. Well, too bad. We just send all of our money to Ukraine. Fucking ridiculous.
Iraq, Secretary Rubio, myself and Ukrainian delegation will be meeting in Saudi Arabia next week to get these talks back on track, get the ceasefire in place, and drive peace home under President Trump's leadership.
President, you put out
I think both parties want to settle. I think if I wasn't
Do they?
president, this war would have had no chance of settlement, zero chance.
I agree.
But I think we're going to get it settled and stopped. We got to stop.
I agree, because even when you listen to the European Union, they don't talk about end of the war. They don't talk about a peace deal. They don't talk about anything. It's just like, oh, we're going to support Ukraine. There's no way Ukraine can win. Just look at the population of Russia, look at the population of Ukraine. Look at the regimes. One is democratic, one is communist. What do you think is going to happen in the communist country? Oh, you don't want to go to war? Okay, you're going to the prison. Your family is going to get casted out. Whatever, right? You're going to bankrupt. We're going to take your house. Because that's what they do in communist countries. They just take your property. They don't give a fuck. It happened to my family back in Czech Republic when we were occupied. So, like, who do you think is going to win? Some country that can send at least half of their population to war, or some country that's not even as big as the half of the population. Like, they can have all the money, all the weapons they want from Europe, but in the end they're gonna bleed out. And they're gonna take Europe with them if Europe continues just supporting them. Like, this needs to be finished. And it's gonna sound insensitive, but it needs to be finished not only for Ukraine, but for the whole world. Like, it's been going on for too long. It's ridiculous. And again, like that meeting after Trump, JD, and Zelensky went to UK, right? Have a meeting to get some support from European Union. No endgame. They have no idea how to deal with it. So yeah, thank God President Trump got elected again, because otherwise we would all go down to hell.
They're losing on average 2,000 soldiers a week. That's a lot of soldiers. Do you agree, Peter?
It's a lot of soldiers on both sides, I agree. Do you, Mr. President, think that Vladimir Putin is taking advantage of the U.S. pause right now on intelligence and military aid to Ukraine?
No, I actually think he's doing what anybody else would do. I think he wants to get it stopped and settled, and I think he's hitting them harder than he's been hitting them. And I think probably anybody in that position would be doing that right now.
Yeah.
He wants to get it ended, and I think Ukraine wants to get it ended, but I don't see it's crazy. They're taking tremendous punishment. I don't quite get it, but I suspect, Michael, he probably wants to get it ended.
He does, Mr. President. The Russians are taking incredible losses on the front. As the president has said, this is a meat grinder of people, of material, of national treasure, and no one else has any solutions except to let this war continue forever. But I'll add, the president has had multiple conversations and a visit from President Macron of France, Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom. We have the NATO Secretary General coming next week. We have this meeting with the Ukrainians. We've had it with the Russians. All of this in the president's first month in his leadership. We will engage in the shuttle diplomacy, and we will continue to use his leadership and what leverage we have to get both sides of the peace table. It's not going to be easy, but President Trump.
Well, you know what? I believe that Putin wants a peace deal, and the reason for it is easy, because right now they're just considered being thieves, terrorists, whatever, like all of these words that are not good for them, right? But with the peace deal, they're gonna officially get some of the land from Ukraine. Like, there's no way they're gonna give everything back and the borders will be the same like before the war. Like, there's no way it's gonna happen. And with the peace deal, you have it officially written down, signed. This is your land. This is part of the Russia. So I bet Putin wants that. And yeah, like, obviously the big concern is what's going to happen in 4 years once Trump is out of office, and like depending who's the next president, maybe Putin will decide to invade more, right? Because it worked for them once, so why not do it again? So that's definitely a big concern. But right now you can't really be picky. Like they said, it's a meat grinder. People are dying on both sides, and like, let's be honest, the Russians that are fighting that war, some of them don't even know why they're there. Some of them are there only because of some blackmailing, or just because of the pressure from the Communist Party, right? Like, you want your family to do good, well, you need to go to war. Like that's how it works. And anyone who thinks that 100% of the Russians that are fighting that war are there willingly, you're stupid. I'm sorry. Look, talk to someone from the communist country, talk to someone who was occupied, look into the history. Like, they don't have a choice. Like, it's all up to the president of Russia, which is Putin, right? So yeah, like, it's obviously it's easy to be like, well, we don't care about the losses on the Russia side, but they're people as well, and you don't know their backstories. So like, I'm not making excuse for Russia in general, but this war needs to stop for sure.
It would have never happened. It would have never happened if I were president, but it did happen. So a lot of other things shouldn't have happened too. We shouldn't have 21 million people pouring into our country through open borders, many of whom are criminals, very bad criminals, including murderers.
Sorry, I'm not able to type.
Many killed, far more than one person, and they're roaming our streets. But Tom Homan and Kristi Noem are doing an incredible job, and we're getting them out of here. And we'll get them out. We'll get them all out. But all these things shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have inflation. We shouldn't have had this horrible inflation.
Exactly.
Where the prices have gone up. Look at eggs. So we're doing a good job. We're doing a good job. Yeah.
This inflation business is still so ridiculous to me. Like, why are we having a crazy expensive gas when in Canada we have a lot of oil fields? Like, why am I paying so much for the gas because of the Ukraine-Russia conflict? It doesn't make sense. Like, we have it in our own country, right? Same with US, like, so many energies. And like he mentioned, eggs. Like, why you want to tell me that there are no farms in the US? That's bullshit. So yeah, like I said, the tariffs might make people finally realize that they have everything they need in their own countries and start using it. Like, don't sell it out for profit, just sell it within. And but again, that obviously comes to the government. Like, hopefully Trump and Musk and whoever will keep an eye on it, so their own companies don't make money off the normal Americans, right? But yeah, like in Canada, we don't have anyone who would even try to keep an eye on it right now. So obviously here it's everything about the profit, and that's why we have inflation, and that's why it was like that in the US during Biden.
In regards to the pause on military assistance to Ukraine, you put out on your social media post today that Russia is pounding Ukraine.
That's right.
Why not provide Ukraine with air defenses? And what happens, Mr.
Why?
President, when Ukraine runs out of...
Well, because
Okay, why? Why would you provide them with air defense? Just send them more? Like, you need to deal about the peace. Like, don't give them any more money. Yeah, like, don't give them any more money. What is it gonna solve? Like, and especially right now when you see that the Ukrainians are the ones that are not willing to deal about the peace right now. Like, where is this guy from? Who even asked that question?
yeah.
Oh,
good
thanks.
question. Because I have to know that they want to settle. I don't know that they want to settle.
Yeah,
If they don't want
exactly.
to settle, we're out of there. Because we want them to settle. And I'm doing it to stop death. More important than anything else. Secondarily, way down the line is the money. So we're in for $350 billion, and Europe is in for $100 billion. They should.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually surprised he replied this like calmly, like pretty polite. Because sometimes he's like, "Who do you work for?" Oh, that's why. But no, definitely, if they're not willing to negotiate about a peace, if they don't have any end game, what happened with the Zelensky's plan for victory or whatever was it called? Like, obviously, it was just give me money, give me weapons, and then we'll win. Yeah, you don't hear about it anymore, right? About the ultimate plan for victory. Yeah, what happened with that? But no, definitely, Trump is right. Like, why would you support them if they don't want to finish the war? Like, they don't want to negotiate about a peace. Like, that's just bullshit.
Be in for the same or more than us. And, you know, I watched over the last week or so what's going on in Europe. This thing could end up in World War III if we don't get it settled.
Oh, for sure.
This could really end up in a World War III. We got to get it settled.
So on Iran, how confident are you that the Iranians will negotiate with you? And is Israel on board with this outrage?
Yeah, I saw the hostages the other day. They came in, people that were not young and some older, much older. And they gave, it was hard for them to do it, actually. They gave statements as to what happened. I was asking, what happened? How was it? I said, did you see anybody in there that was kind, like out of the hundreds of people that you were seeing, Hamas? Did some of them wink at you and say, don't worry, you're going to be okay, or give you a piece of bread, or no? I said, were there any people that were, like, kind? I was shocked. The answer was nobody. There was nobody. Just the opposite.
Bomb them. Just bomb them. But no, he doesn't want any war, right? And I agree with that. But like Hamas is terrorist organization. Like, what do you expect? They freaking behead people. So you expect someone there is gonna be polite? I mean, they're no.
Opposite. They'd be slapped and punched. One man broke his ribs. He couldn't breathe for a month. It was brutal. I was so surprised because you'd think there'd be a couple of people that would be kind, that would say, you're going to be okay. But
no, they won't, because even if they wanted to say it, which I don't think there would be anyone like that, like they're afraid for their own life, right? Again, it's terrorist organization. Like, it would be weakness if someone's kind. Like, if they see it, you don't know what's going to happen to them, right? They might end up in the cage right next to them. Well, probably with them.
they had none of that. It's pretty amazing. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. President.
He's a kind person.
Well, according to the...
Although not to Zelensky, he wasn't.
Well, you know what, that's another
But to Trump, he's been good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
Nice tie, by the way. Look, we coordinated. Two questions. One on peace.
Nice
why
tie.
don't you think any other European countries are offering a peace deal? It seems like no one's come to the table for peace except for you.
Yeah.
Because all other countries are pussies. I'm sorry, I said that, but they don't want to negotiate about a peace because they all know Ukraine will have to give up something. But they don't want to be the bad guys being like, being called that they're pro-Russia and all of it. No, everyone knows Ukraine will have to... Everyone will have to give something up, right? But not everyone wants to be in that position like Trump. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's a very good question. Sometimes questions aren't answerable. They're in a very unusual position. They don't know how to end the war. I think I do know how to end the war. Despite the Russia hoax, I've always had a good relationship with Putin. And, you know, he wants to end the war. He wants to end it. And I think he's going to be more generous than he has to be. And that's pretty good. That means a lot of good things. because frankly, you could have made a great deal if this war never started. You could have made a great deal. I don't know that anything would have had to be given up. This was not a war that was going to start, Brian. And it didn't start. For 4 years, somebody said, well, how do we know that? Well, for 4 years, it didn't start. I used to speak to Vladimir about it. I used to speak to him about it at length. It was the apple of his eye, but there was no way he was going in. And he knew, there were going to be consequences. But it did start. I mean, think of what happened. Inflation, you have the war with Ukraine and Russia, that wouldn't have happened. October 7th would have never happened. Israel, they had no money. Iran
I
had
don't know
no
if
money.
October
Iran
7th
was
would never happen.
stone cold broke. And now they have a lot of money. And that's going to be the next thing you'll be talking about is Iran. What's going to happen with Iran? And there'll be some interesting days ahead. That's all I can tell you. We're down to final strokes with Iran. That's going to be an interesting.
So wait, is it like official that Hamas right now is Iran? Because they keep talking about Iran, and I know back in the day, I mean a few months ago, they mentioned that Hamas is actually has come from Iran, right? So is it now official? Is it now kind of Israel against Iran, or?
Time. And we'll see what happens. But we're down to the final moments. We're at final moments. You can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
Oh, for sure. Oh well, so yeah, we're still there, that Ukraine's not really willing to negotiate about a peace. We'll see what's gonna happen in Saudi next week if Ukrainians were Ukrainians invited or no? Because I know originally they were thinking about not inviting them because of they're not really willing to negotiate about anything, right? But anyway, I definitely agree. Like if they don't want to settle this war, if they don't want a peace deal, they shouldn't get support. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, like it needs to end. And if you're not willing to end it, well, then you're in it on your own. Not a popular opinion, but yeah.